So, picture this for a second. You are just sitting on your couch.
Right.
The TV is humming in the background. Maybe it's some sitcom you've seen like a dozen times.
Oh, yeah, totally normal evening.
Exactly. You get a warm cup of coffee in your hand, and you are just mindlessly scrolling through your phone. Or, alternatively, maybe you just answered a really quick phone call that seemed incredibly routine.
Like a bank verification or something.
Or a package delivery update.
Okay.
And you click a link, or maybe you verbally confirm a single detail with the person on the other end of the line, and then just in a fraction of a second, the reality of what just happened washes over you.
Oh, man, that feeling.
It's awful. The screen refreshes to a blank page, or the call just disconnects with this harsh click and your stomach just plummets into your shoes.
Yep.
The room suddenly feels like it's spinning. And you realize, with this sickening ice-cold clarity, that you have just been scammed.
It is a profoundly isolating moment.
Yeah.
Because if you look around, the physical world is completely untouched. Right.
Right. Nothing has changed.
Exactly. The coffee is still steaming. The sitcom characters are still laughing on the TV. The sunlight is still coming through the window. But your internal reality, like your entire sense of security, has just violently shattered.
That contrast is just so jarring. The world didn't end, but it feels like your personal universe just collapsed in on itself.
It really does.
And usually, when we talk about scams, we focus entirely on the mechanics of that precise moment of failure.
Right, the how.
Yeah, we do these postmortems on the phishing email or the spoofed phone number or the clever disguise the criminal used. We focus on the math, the thousands of dollars that just vanished into thin air.
The tangible loss.
Exactly. But today, we are doing something entirely different for this deep dive.
We really are.
We are looking at the silent, sprawling, psychological aftermath of that exact moment. We're working off this fascinating set of source notes today titled Day 29 After Fraud Survival.
It's a really incredible document.
It is. And our mission for you listening right now is to completely reframe how you understand this experience, because recovering from a scam is not just an accounting problem.
Not at all.
No. It is a complex, multi-layered, and frankly grueling journey of emotional, mental, and practical recovery.
And, it's vital that we pull this topic out of the shadows, because the unfortunate reality of our modern digital infrastructure is that anyone can be a target.
Anyone.
Literally anyone. I cannot emphasize the word anyone strongly enough here. There is this pervasive, really dangerous myth out there that only the elderly or the technologically illiterate fall for these crimes.
Oh, absolutely. People think, I'd never fall for that.
Right. But if you walk around thinking you are too smart or too cautious or too tech-savvy to be fooled, you are actually leaving a massive blind spot in your defenses.
You're just making yourself vulnerable.
Exactly. So we are not treating this deep dive as some grim cautionary tale of financial ruin. We are using these notes as a comprehensive blueprint.
I love that. A blueprint.
Yeah, this is about building psychological resilience just as much as it is about actionable recovery.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The very first place our source material takes us is into what it calls the emotional trauma.
Right.
This is the immediate psychological ambush that follows the realization that you've been defrauded. And the notes are very explicit here. This is not just a passing feeling of frustration.
No, it's not like dropping a 20 on the sidewalk.
Right, like dropping a $100 bill out of your pocket and realizing it a block later. It's not that. It is categorized medically and psychologically as a deep emotional shock.
Shock is really the only accurate term for it. I mean, it fundamentally disrupts your baseline sense of security in the world.
How so?
Well, the source lists 4 specific manifestations of this trauma, and they appear almost universally across victims of fraud, totally regardless of the financial amount lost.
Wow, even if it's a small amount.
Even if it's $20. First, you see severe trust issues immediately take root. The internal monologue instantly becomes, who can I trust now? Because if a seemingly official bank representative, someone who had your address, your account digits, maybe even your mother's maiden name,
Right.
if that person was actually a criminal operating out of a boiler room, what else in your daily life is an elaborate facade?
Oh, man. The ground beneath your feet suddenly feels like quicksand.
Exactly.
You just start questioning the authenticity of every single digital interaction you have.
And that paranoia feeds directly into the second manifestation, which is pervasive fear and
It's
anxiety.
a constant edge.
Yeah. The victim starts exhibiting this hyper-vigilant startle response. They jump at every unknown call, every text message chime, every calendar notification.
The smartphone basically turns against them.
It does. I mean, the smartphone, which for most of us is an essential tool of connection and convenience, suddenly transforms into a source of constant dread. It feels like a loaded weapon resting on your coffee table.
That is a terrifying way to live.
It is. And third is the endless loop of overthinking. Rumination.
The what ifs.
Oh, the what ifs are brutal. If only I hadn't clicked that link. If only I had paused for 5 seconds to look at the URL.
If only I had just hung up the phone.
Right. If only I had hung up and called the number on the back of my card. It's this relentless mental replay of the event, just searching for a way to change an unchangeable past.
Which naturally bleeds into the fourth manifestation, right? The severe sleep disturbance.
Oh, inevitably.
Because you might force yourself to go through the motions of your day, but at night, when the distractions fade, your brain simply refuses to power down.
It can't. The threat detection system is permanently jammed in the on position.
You're just lying awake, staring at the ceiling, heart racing, cortisol pumping through your veins over a digital transaction.
Precisely.
But, I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least explore the biological mechanics of it.
Sure.
Because if I think about a physical crime, like a violent home invasion, the trauma makes perfect logical sense to me there. If someone kicks in your front door, threatens you, and steals your television, your physical sanctuary was violently breached.
Right, there's a physical reality to it.
Yeah, there was a tangible kinetic threat to your bodily safety. The adrenaline response, the lingering PTSD that is completely justified by human evolution.
Absolutely.
But a digital scam, it happens silently across a fiber optic cable. The scammer might be sitting in an internet cafe 10,000 miles away.
Right.
You were never at any point in physical danger. So why does a digital, completely invisible crime cause such a visceral, physical anxiety response? Like, why are people experiencing a physiological fight-or-flight reaction over a bad link on the internet?
That is the defining question of modern cybercrime.
Really?
Yeah, and the source material provides a brilliant entry point into the why of it all. It explains that a scam is not a simple theft of funds. It is a highly calculated psychological attack.
Psychological attack.
Yes. The scammer didn't use a crowbar or a lockpick to break into your bank account. They used a much more vulnerable access point, you.
Wow.
They hacked your human nature. To understand the physical response, we have to look at the 3 specific tactics they deliberately employ, which are manufacturing urgency, weaponizing fear, and exploiting trust.
So they're bypassing the digital firewalls by attacking the biological one.
That's a great way to frame it. Let's look at the biology of manufactured urgency and weaponized fear.
Okay, let's do it.
A scammer will call and say something like, your social security number has been linked to a cartel money laundering operation, and federal agents are en route to your house right now.
Oh, my God.
Or they'll say, your daughter has been in a horrible accident, her phone is broken, and she needs money for emergency surgery immediately.
Just absolute panic-inducing stuff.
Right. So what happens in your brain in that microsecond?
Well, I imagine it's an immediate adrenaline dump.
It is an overwhelming flood of adrenaline and cortisol. This artificial urgency triggers your amygdala, which is the ancient, primitive fear center of your brain designed to keep you alive when a tiger jumps out of the bushes.
Well, lizard brain.
Exactly, the lizard brain. But here is the critical neurobiological mechanism. When the amygdala fires up, it essentially hijacks the brain's resources.
Hijacks them.
It actively suppresses the prefrontal cortex. Now, your prefrontal cortex is the evolutionary newcomer. It's the part of your brain responsible for logical, rational, critical thinking, skepticism, and pattern recognition.
The part that would say, wait a minute, this caller sounds sketchy.
Precisely. But by manufacturing absolute panic, the scammer biologically disables your ability to think clearly.
I find that deeply fascinating. So you are quite literally physically incapable of being smart in that moment.
Yes.
Because your brain has redirected all its energy into survival mode. You can't analyze the URL of a website because your brain thinks you were running from a predator.
Yes, that's exactly it. They weaponize your own evolutionary fight-or-flight response against you.
Yeah.
Your brain is preparing your muscles to run, not preparing your intellect to analyze a spoofed caller ID.
Right.
And once they have you in that impaired, highly suggestible state, they deploy the third tactic that exploit your inherent social programming.
Which is what?
Well, Human beings are deeply social creatures. We are naturally inclined to trust authority figures or to help a friend in distress or to just follow step-by-step instructions from someone who sounds calm, confident, and official when we are panicking.
So returning to that home invasion analogy from earlier,
Yeah.
a scammer didn't just break into your house to steal your TV. They manipulated you into unlocking the front door,
Right.
turning off the alarm system,
Yeah.
carrying the TV out to their van, loading it for them, and then thanking them as they drove away.
Wow. Yes. They made you an active participant in your own robbery.
That is incredibly dark.
It is dark.
But it explains so much about the devastating aftermath.
Mm.
Because the natural reaction to realizing you participated in the crime, once that manufactured urgency finally fades, is crushing embarrassment.
Oh, absolutely.
Your amygdala eventually powers down, your prefrontal cortex slowly comes back online, and suddenly, in the cold light of day, the red flags seem agonizingly obvious.
Declaring.
The spelling errors in the email, the strange cadence of the caller, the completely absurd demand to pay a government fine with digital gift cards.
Right. Target gift cards for the IRS.
Exactly. And you look back and think, how could I have been so incredibly foolish?
And that brings us to what I consider the most critical paradigm shift of this entire deep dive.
Okay.
It's a core truth highlighted repeatedly in our source text. The victim almost always feels stupid. It's the default setting of the aftermath.
Sure.
But the reality of the situation is entirely different. The victim was the target of a masterfully planned, meticulously refined manipulation.
They weren't just being dumb.
No, they were not the root cause of the failure. They were the focal point of a highly sophisticated attack. The notes lay this out clearly. Fraud is a planned, industrialized crime.
I really love that reframing. It separates the victim's raw intelligence from the event itself.
Exactly.
It makes me think of falling for a really good magic trick.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Like if you go to a show and a magician makes a crane disappear, you don't walk out of the theater beating yourself up thinking you are an idiot because you didn't catch the sleight of hand.
Right, you don't feel stupid.
No. You recognize that the magician is just really good at misdirection. They understand the lag in human visual processing, and they exploit it.
That analogy holds up beautifully under scrutiny. A stage magician directs your attention exactly where they want it to go, perhaps to some flashy movement with their right hand, while they quietly execute the mechanics of the trick with their left hand, precisely where you aren't looking.
Right.
A scammer does the exact same thing, but instead of manipulating your visual field, they are manipulating your emotional bandwidth. They direct your emotional attention toward a terrifying manufactured crisis, consuming all your cognitive resources so you just don't have the mental RAM left to notice the logical inconsistencies in their cover story.
So understanding that you were outmaneuvered by a professional who uses neurobiology against you, rather than acting out of inherent stupidity, well, that helps explain the initial shock and justifies the physical anxiety.
It does.
It makes the sleep loss make sense. But the source material notes that this initial shock doesn't just fade away on its own.
Unfortunately not.
If left unaddressed, it mutates. It ferments into what the notes call the single most dangerous phase of the entire recovery process.
And what's that?
Profound, isolating shame.
Shame is the dark matter of the scam economy.
The dark matter. I like that.
It is the invisible, immensely powerful force field that protects the scammers long after the crime has been committed.
Well, let's transition into this phase, which the notes title Shame and Guilt, or as we're interpreting it, the trap of silence. Because once the panic subsides and the prefrontal cortex is fully running again, the self-blame sets in hard. The source lists the typical toxic thoughts that plague a victim.
Like what?
Thoughts like, what will people say about me? Or how could I, a competent adult, make such a huge mistake? If I tell anyone at work or tell my spouse, it will be a permanent stain on my character.
It's agonizing.
And I have to admit, I struggle to fully grasp the depth of this.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I understand feeling devastated about losing a life savings. I understand feeling white-hot anger at the thief. But why do victims hide this from their own families? I've read stories of people taking out secret loans to cover the lost money rather than admit to their spouses that they were scammed.
It happens all the time.
Why is the human ego so heavily involved in being the victim of this specific type of crime?
What's fascinating here is how the unique mechanics of a scam create a completely false sense of intellectual failure, unlike almost any other crime.
Okay, walk me through that.
Think about it. If you park your car on the street and you come out the next morning to find the window smashed and the stereo gone, You don't feel intellectually inferior.
No, I feel violated and angry.
Right. You feel unlucky. You immediately call the police. You tell your coworkers. You complain about the rising crime rate to your neighbors. Your ego isn't bruised because the thief acted completely independently of you.
That's true. I didn't help them break the window.
Exactly. But because a scam requires your active, albeit manipulated participation, it feels like you failed a test of your own judgment. You feel
Oh.
like you willingly handed over the keys to your car. And human beings, from an evolutionary standpoint, are intensely protective of their social standing and their perceived competence within their tribe or their family unit.
That makes total sense. We desperately want to be seen as capable.
We need to be.
Especially if you are in a role of responsibility, if you are a parent or a financial provider or a professional who makes high-stakes decisions for a living.
Yeah.
Admitting you were conned feels like a confession that you are losing your edge, or worse, that you are no longer equipped to protect your family.
Exactly. And to combat this crippling shame, the source text provides a fantastic, multi-layered reality check to actively dismantle this false narrative of intellectual failure.
Good. We need a reality check here.
It reminds us of three critical facts about the modern landscape of fraud. First, scammers are not lone hackers in basements anymore.
Right, the guy in the hoodie.
Yeah, that's a myth. They target millions of people every single day. This is a global, multi-billion-dollar industrialized operation.
I'd argue it goes even deeper than just being industrialized. These operations have HR departments.
They do.
They have performance reviews for their callers. They use A/B testing on their phishing emails to see which subject lines trigger the highest anxiety response.
It's terrifyingly corporate.
It is. When you get one of these calls, you aren't fighting a guy trying to trick you. You are fighting the combined, optimized resources of a criminal corporation.
That context is incredibly important. The second fact the notes highlight is the demographic reality of the victims.
Which is,
Highly educated, incredibly tech-savvy people fall for these traps constantly. We are talking about doctors, corporate lawyers, and ironically, even cybersecurity experts.
really, cybersecurity experts.
Yes, because no one is immune, because everyone has an amygdala. And third, and perhaps most importantly to internalize, falling for a scam is almost always an issue of circumstance and situation, not a lack of general intelligence.
It's about being caught in the wrong mindset at the exact wrong microsecond.
Exactly.
You know, you're distracted, you're sleep-deprived from a newborn, you're highly stressed about an upcoming performance review, or maybe you're just waiting for an important package delivery.
Right.
And right in that window of vulnerability, your phone buzzes with a text about a delayed package. The stars just align perfectly for the scammer.
Yes, it's a numbers game for them. The scammer casts a massive automated net, hoping to catch someone exactly in that moment of circumstantial distraction.
Just phishing.
Literally. If they use an automated system to send out 10,000 text messages claiming your bank account has been compromised due to suspicious activity, they know statistically that 9,999 people might ignore it.
Yeah.
But they only need one person who happens to be agonizing over their finances that particular morning, who maybe just made a large, unusual purchase and is already on edge.
And that person looks at the text.
And lets their fear override their logic. It is situational vulnerability, pure and simple.
Okay, so building that context
Hmm.
is vital for dismantling the ego aspect. It proves the shame is misplaced.
Completely.
But the text doesn't just offer psychological comfort. It issues a very stark, actionable warning. The notes highlight a defining quote, which I really think needs to be the anchor of this entire deep dive.
I agree.
The quote is, "Being a victim is not a shame. Staying silent is a mistake."
That is the golden rule of post-fraud survival right there. Being a victim is not a shame. Staying silent is a mistake. It perfectly captures the tension between the internal feeling of embarrassment and the absolute necessity of external action.
Let's expand on that second half.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that staying silent is a critical mistake. If I'm humiliated and I just want to swallow the financial loss, absorb the blow, and pretend the whole nightmare never happened.
Which is tempting.
Very tempting.
Yeah.
But what is the actual tangible harm in my silence?
The most immediate damage of silence is that it provides flawless operational security for the scammer.
Right. If you don't report it, the infrastructure they use, the spoof numbers, the fake websites, the receiving bank accounts, they all stay active.
Exactly.
You're basically giving them a free pass to keep the machinery running.
Yes. But it's worse than that because your silence directly enables the victimization of others. Let's say a new, highly sophisticated type of phishing scam is targeting a specific community. Maybe it's aimed at teachers in a specific school district, exploiting a recent change in their pension portal.
Okay.
If the first 10 victims are too deeply embarrassed to warn their colleagues or report the vulnerability, the 11th victim is guaranteed to fall for it too.
It reminds me of how cybersecurity professionals view unpatched software vulnerabilities.
Oh, exactly.
Your silence is basically a zero-day exploit for human networks. As long as the victim hides the vulnerability out of embarrassment, the hackers can use that exact same psychological backdoor to rob every other user in the community.
That is a phenomenal metaphor. A zero-day exploit thrives on a lack of awareness.
Yeah, you are leaving the door wide open for the next person.
You are. But the third consequence of silence, according to our source, turns inward. It severely delays and complicates your own personal recovery.
Because you're holding it in.
By keeping the secret, you are internalizing a massive trauma. You are attempting to carry the weight of the financial loss, the psychological violation, and the ongoing burden of deception all by yourself.
That's a heavy burden.
It festers in the dark. The isolation acts as an echo chamber, amplifying the anxiety, the paranoia, and the sleep disturbance we talked about earlier. You cannot heal from a wound you are desperately trying to hide.
So the silence acts as a greenhouse for the trauma. It creates the perfect humid environment for the fear to grow faster and deeper.
Precisely, which is why the immediate, non-negotiable remedy prescribed in the text is to break the silence.
You just have to say it out loud.
You have to drag the event out of the dark corners of your mind and into the light of reality. Tell a trusted friend. Confide in a family member. File an official complaint. And consciously, deliberately out loud if you have to, stop the self-blame.
And overcoming that initial wall of shame, pushing past the bruising of the ego, is what gives a person the momentum to actually transition into the next most crucial phase.
Right, the action phase.
Because once the silence is broken, you can't just stop at confession. You have to do something about the crime. You have to aggressively take back the steering wheel.
Absolutely.
This leads us directly into the core of our source material. The blueprint for practical recovery, or what the text emphatically calls the ASLI action plan.
Which translates to the real action plan.
Yes, the real action plan.
This section represents a hard pivot in the recovery journey. Up until now, we've been dealing with the internal landscape, navigating the neurobiology, the emotions, the shame.
The visible stuff.
Right. But now, the source demands immediate, pragmatic action in the external physical world. And taking these practical steps is not just an administrative chore. It is the physical manifestation of taking your power back.
I am going to walk us through this ASLI action plan because the notes break it down into a highly specific, sequential checklist.
It's very systematic.
And I really want everyone listening to mentally file these steps away, even if you never need them. Knowing this sequence is like knowing CPR.
That's a great way to put it.
Whether it happens to you, your aging parents, or a colleague, this sequence is the definitive emergency protocol.
It is the triage process for a digital hemorrhage.
Exactly. So step one is immediate action. The absolute first thing you do within minutes of realizing you've been scammed is inform your bank to instantly block all transactions and freeze the accounts.
Stop the bleeding.
You stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
Then you dial the dedicated National Cyber Fraud Helpline. Now, our source notes are specifically referencing the infrastructure in India here, citing the 1930 Cyber Fraud Helpline.
Right.
And it mandates reporting the crime to the official cybercrime portal, which is listed as cybercrime.gov.in. But the underlying principle here is universally applicable no matter where in the world you are listening from.
The mechanism is the same everywhere.
Right. If you are in the U.S., you contact your bank and immediately file a report with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3. If you're in the U.K., it's action fraud.
And we really need to emphasize why speed is the single most critical factor in step one. It all comes down to how modern financial crimes operate mechanically.
Right, let's look under the hood. The notes mention the possibility of recovering funds, but only if reported incredibly early. Why is that window so incredibly narrow? What is happening to the money in the first hour?
When a scammer successfully tricks you into authorizing a transfer, that money doesn't just sit in a single account waiting for them to withdraw it at an ATM.
That would be too easy.
Right. They employ a vast, highly coordinated network of what are called mule accounts.
Wait, what exactly is a mule account? Are these conscious criminal accomplices or are they other victims?
It's often a mix, which makes it diabolically clever.
Okay.
Some mules are complicit criminals who take a cut for moving dirty money. But very often, money mules are victims of work-from-home scams themselves.
No way.
Yes. People who think they got a legitimate job as a payment processor and their only duty is to receive funds into their personal bank account, keep 10%, and wire the rest to another account or buy cryptocurrency with it.
So they think they have a real job.
Exactly. They don't even realize they are the crucial layering mechanism for an international money laundering operation.
That is wild. So the money hits the first mule account. And then what?
It fractures. The money from your account might hit a mule in Texas, who immediately wires it to 3 other mules in Europe, who immediately use it to purchase Bitcoin or stablecoins.
And once it's crypto.
Once the funds enter the cryptocurrency blockchain, or once they're moved into jurisdictions with uncooperative banking laws, they are effectively vaporized. They are gone forever.
How fast does that happen?
This entire layering process, moving from your bank through the mules and into crypto, can take less than 2 hours.
Which explains why hesitation born of embarrassment is the most expensive mistake a victim can make.
Yes.
If you sit on the couch for 3 hours feeling ashamed, the money has already traversed the globe. But if you call the bank and the cyber helpline within minutes, what happens?
Authorities and financial institutions have rapid communication channels. If you flag the transaction instantly, your bank can contact the receiving bank. They can flag the first mule account and potentially freeze it before the mule has a chance to forward the money or buy crypto. You are essentially trying to outrun a digital transaction.
Wow.
That's why breaking the silence immediately is not just an emotional victory, it is the only mechanical way to intercept your stolen funds.
Okay, so you've sounded the alarm. You've hopefully stopped the bleeding. Then we move to step 2, the security reset.
Securing the perimeter.
Yes, this is where you secure the perimeter. The notes are very firm here. Change all your passwords, not just the ones you think were compromised, but all the critical ones, email, banking, social media.
All of them.
Enable two-factor authentication, or 2FA, everywhere. Delete any suspicious apps from your devices and begin rigorously monitoring your email and bank alerts for any secondary attacks.
This step is crucial because scammers don't just want your money. They want persistent access. They want to leave a back door open so they can return in 6 months.
Let's drill down into a couple of these technical terms, because the notes mention deleting suspicious apps. I know a lot of tech support scams rely on the victim downloading something.
Yes.
How exactly does that work?
They often rely on remote access Trojans, or RATs, though they often masquerade as legitimate software like AnyDesk or TeamViewer.
Oh, I've used TeamViewer for work.
Right, it's a real tool.
Yeah.
But a scammer posing as tech support or a bank investigator will tell you, I need to run a secure diagnostic on your phone to reverse the fraudulent charges. Please download the support app.
And people do it.
Because they're panicked. Once you install it and give them the access code, you have essentially handed them the master keys to your device.
Wait, they can see your screen in real time.
They can see everything. They can watch you type in your banking passwords. Even worse, if your bank sends you a one-time password via text message to verify a transfer, the scammer can read the text message right off your screen.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they input it into their own system and approve the theft while you watch helplessly.
That is nightmare fuel.
That is why deleting any recently downloaded apps and, frankly, doing a complete factory reset of the device if you suspect a remote access tool was installed is paramount.
That leads perfectly into the instruction to enable two-factor authentication. Now, most people know what 2FA is. You enter your password and then the site texts you a code.
Right.
But if everyone knows about 2FA, why are these scams still so successful? Is SMS text messaging actually secure?
That is a brilliant question, and it highlights a major vulnerability. SMS-based two-factor authentication is better than nothing, but it is highly vulnerable to a tactic called SIM swapping.
Wait, how does SIM swapping bypass 2FA?
It's pure social engineering. A scammer gathers your basic information, your name, phone number, maybe your address from a data breach.
That they can buy on the dark web.
Exactly. Then they call your telecom provider, pretending to be you. They act panicked and say, I just dropped my phone in a lake. I need to activate a new SIM card immediately for work.
Yeah, the telecom rep just believes them.
If they successfully trick the customer service rep into porting your phone number over to a blank SIM card they control, your actual phone suddenly loses service.
Oh, no.
And more importantly, every single 2FA text message from your bank, your email, and your crypto wallet is now being delivered directly to the scammer's phone.
That is terrifying. It completely bypasses the security of the password.
Exactly. Which is why cybersecurity professionals highly recommend using authenticator apps like Google Authenticator or Authy or even physical security keys rather than relying on text messages.
Because those aren't tied to the phone number.
Right. Authenticator apps generate the code locally on your specific physical device. They aren't vulnerable to SIM swapping because the codes aren't intercepted over the cellular network.
Okay, so that's step 2. You've changed the passwords, you've secured the device, you've set up robust 2FA. Then there is step 3 in the ASLI action plan, documentation.
This one is so important.
The instructions here are basically to become a digital hoarder. Save every single transaction detail. Take screenshots of everything. Text messages, emails, spoofed websites, call logs showing the duration of the call.
Type it all.
And, crucially, maintain a hard copy of the formal police report. The notes use the term FIR, which stands for First Information Report in India, and it's the document that officially sets the criminal justice machinery in motion.
Right.
In the US or Europe, it would be the official case number generated by the police or the federal cybercrime portal.
I want to spend some time on this step because the instruction to aggressively hoard evidence is fascinating, not just from a legal standpoint, but from a psychological one.
I have a theory on this.
Yeah.
I imagine taking screenshots, writing down exact timelines, and gathering data forces your brain to switch gears.
You're exactly right. We talked earlier about the amygdala hijack, how the scam forces you into an emotional flight response where you feel completely helpless and panicked. When the scam is happening, you are entirely a passive target. Things are happening to you. You are reacting blindly to the scammer's artificial stimuli.
But when you start building a dossier,
Yes. When you sit down with a notepad and start documenting timelines, when you take screenshots and organize evidence files, you fundamentally alter your role in the narrative.
you flip the script.
You transition from a passive victim into an active investigator. You are no longer just the prey hiding in the grass. You are building a case file.
All of that.
This physical action forces the engagement of that rational prefrontal cortex that was disabled during the attack. It replaces chaotic panic with structured purpose. You are looking at the event objectively, analyzing the data points, which is a massive, necessary step toward regaining emotional equilibrium.
It's taking back the agency that was stolen from you. I think that's the most powerful realization of this entire action plan.
It really is.
Looking at these 3 steps, calling the bank, resetting passwords, taking screenshots, none of these guarantee that you will get your life savings back. As we discussed with the mule accounts, the money is often just gone.
Sadly, yes.
But taking these practical steps isn't just about financial recovery. The scammer didn't just steal your money. They stole your autonomy. Executing this emergency protocol is how you forcefully take your autonomy back. It's proving to yourself that you are capable of defending your perimeter.
Action is the ultimate antidote to anxiety. When you are moving, when you have a checklist, you are proving to your nervous system that you are not helpless. You are proving that you survived the ambush and are now fortifying your position.
Okay, so you execute the action plan. You lock down the accounts. You implement strong 2FA. You file the official FIR or police reports. You build your meticulous dossier of evidence. You have done everything right in the physical, practical world. You've put out the fire.
Good job.
But as anyone who has been through trauma knows, rebuilding the house takes a lot longer than putting out the fire.
Oh, absolutely.
Fixing passwords doesn't instantly cure the sleep disturbances. Filing a police report doesn't magically erase the lingering anxiety or the hypervigilance every time your phone buzzes.
The body keeps the score.
Right. The practical steps are necessary, but they are clearly not sufficient on their own. The practical must be paired with deep, sustained mental rehabilitation.
And our source material recognizes this dichotomy beautifully. It doesn't end with the police report and a pat on the back. It moves gracefully into the final stages of the text, focusing heavily on mental recovery and what it profoundly terms the final understanding.
Let's talk about that mental recovery phase, which is the holistic rebuilding of mind, emotion, and action. The text gives some very grounded, specific advice for this phase.
It does.
It acknowledges that healing takes time. You can't expect your nervous system to bounce back to baseline in 24 hours. It reiterates the absolute necessity of talking to others, keeping that shame at bay. But it also introduces very specific, actionable habits to manage that crippling overthinking and rumination we discussed earlier. It specifically highlights 2 daily practices: journaling and maintaining a strict daily routine.
You know, these might sound like soft self-help platitudes compared to the technical jargon of two-factor authentication, but they're actually deeply effective, evidence-based cognitive behavioral techniques.
Really, just writing in a notebook.
Oh, yeah. If we connect this to the broader science of trauma recovery and neuroplasticity, both journaling and routine serve as vital grounding techniques for a dysregulated nervous system.
I want to understand the mechanics of that. How does writing in a notebook act as a grounding technique?
To understand the cure, you have to remember the symptom. The trauma of a scam pulls your conscious mind out of the present moment and throws it into a chaotic, unmanageable loop.
The overthinking.
Right. You are trapped in past regrets. Why did I answer that call? Why didn't I notice the spelling error? And you are simultaneously paralyzed by future anxieties. What if they use my ID to open credit cards next year? What if they drain my retirement account next?
It's exhausting.
Your brain is living in the past and the future at the same time, which is exhausting.
So your thoughts are basically just a tornado of abstract fears.
Exactly. Now, what does journaling do? Journaling forces you to take those abstract, swirling, chaotic emotions and run them through the language centers of your brain.
Okay.
It forces you to articulate them into linear, structured sentences. You have to put a subject, a verb, and an object to your fear. It gets the terror out of the echoing chambers of your head and pins it onto a piece of paper where you can look at it objectively.
Wow.
It stops the infinite loop because the sentence has a beginning and an end.
That makes profound sense.
Huh?
It's like taking the monster out from under the bed and putting it under a microscope on a well-lit desk.
Great analogy.
It's still an ugly monster, and you still have to deal with it, but it is contained. It has boundaries. You can study it instead of just being terrified by its shadow in the dark.
That is exactly what cognitive behavioral therapy aims to do. And maintaining a daily routine serves a parallel function for your physical nervous system.
How so?
When your sense of security is shattered by a scam, the world feels inherently unpredictable and dangerous. Your brain is telling you that chaos could strike at any second.
Because it just did.
Right. So a routine, forcing yourself to wake up at the exact same time, making your coffee the same way, going for your morning walk, logging into work, reestablishes a baseline of predictability.
It's physical evidence of normality.
Yes. It sends a continuous rhythmic signal to your deep brain that, despite the scam, the fundamental structure of your life is still intact.
The sun still came up.
The dog still needs to be walked. You still have your routine. It effectively neutralizes the lingering psychological weapon the scammer deployed. The routine proves to your body that the acute crisis has passed.
The routine is the daily proof that you survived. And speaking of surviving, the source notes culminate in a synthesis of what it calls the 3 levels of recovery.
Yes.
According to the text, a complete, durable recovery must happen simultaneously on all 3 of these levels. You can't skip one.
That's right. The text lays out the final understanding as a triad. First, the mind. This is the cognitive healing. Regaining your sanity, using journaling to stop the overthinking, and intellectually understanding how your neurobiology was manipulated by a professional.
Right.
Second, the emotion. This is the psychological healing. It's actively dragging the secret into the light, stripping away the toxic guilt, discarding the misplaced shame, and forgiving yourself for being human.
And the third.
And third, the action. This is the physical execution. Reporting the crime, securing your digital perimeter, and building your dossier.
It's a 3-legged stool.
Precisely. If you only execute the action, if you change all your passwords and call the police, but you never talk about it, you will stay emotionally traumatized and isolated.
But you're still trapped.
If you only do the emotion, if you cry on your friend's shoulder and forgive yourself, but you never freeze your bank accounts, you remain totally vulnerable to the next attack.
So you need all 3.
You need the mind to understand, the emotion to heal, and the action to protect.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you, the listener? Why have we spent all this time diving into the microscopic anatomy of a scam's aftermath?
It's the big question.
Whether you have personally been the victim of fraud, whether you were helping an aging parent through it, or whether you were just trying to build your own psychological armor for the future, the fundamental shift this source material is asking us to make is a shift in identity.
An identity shift.
Yes. The text explicitly states, and I want to echo this with as much emphasis as possible, you are not weak, you are a survivor.
Absolutely.
The scam is an isolated incident. It is a thing that happened. It is not your core identity.
Making that distinction is the final triumphant step in crossing the finish line of recovery. When you define yourself internally as a victim or a fool, you surrender your power.
You just give up.
You remain perpetually vulnerable. But when you define yourself as a capable survivor who experienced a highly targeted, sophisticated attack and navigated the aftermath, you retain your strength and your dignity.
It's the profound difference between saying, I am a failure, and saying, I experienced a failure.
Such a huge difference.
One is a life sentence that defines who you are. The other is just a really bad Tuesday that you can learn from.
And that psychological shift is what allows you to fully integrate the experience. You can extract the necessary security lessons using authenticator apps, recognizing artificial urgency, and move forward with your life without dragging the dead weight of shame behind you.
This has been an incredibly illuminating, expansive journey through these source notes. Let's recap the vital terrain we've covered today.
We covered a lot.
We started by validating the reality of the emotional ambush. We established that a scam isn't just lost money. It is a calculated psychological attack that weaponizes our own evolutionary biology, our fight-or-flight response, our amygdala, and our deepest social instincts against us.
It really is a biological attack.
We validated that the resulting trauma, the crippling anxiety, and the sleep loss are real physiological responses to a manufactured threat.
We then explored the perilous trap of silence. We aggressively dismantled the ego-driven myth that falling for a scam is a sign of low intelligence.
Such an important point.
We recognized instead that it is an issue of circumstantial vulnerability, a numbers game played by industrialized professional manipulators. And we saw how choosing silence out of embarrassment acts as a zero-day exploit, protecting the scammer, endangering our communities, and deepening our own trauma.
From there, we dove deep into the mechanics of the ASLI action plan, the crucial time-sensitive steps of immediate reporting to authorities like the cyber fraud helpline, executing comprehensive security resets to lock out remote access Trojans, mitigating SIM swap risks, and rigorously documenting evidence like the FIR.
The physical action.
Yes. We reframed these practical steps not just as legal obligations, but as vital psychological mechanisms for taking back our stolen autonomy and shifting our mindset from passive prey to active investigator.
And finally, we looked at the architecture of holistic rebuilding across the three pillars of mind, emotion, and action. We discussed using cognitive behavioral tools like journaling to break the cycle of rumination, and relying on daily routine to signal safety to our nervous system, ultimately culminating in the empowering realization that a scam is merely an event you survive, not an identity you adopt.
Before we wrap up, I want to reiterate the anchor of the entire text we reviewed today. It's the one sentence that every single person needs to memorize and share.
Being a victim is not a shame. Staying silent is a mistake. Speaking, reporting, and recovering that is real strength.
That is the core truth. And as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
As our lives become increasingly, inextricably woven into the digital fabric, as our banking, our socializing, our professional work, and our most private healthcare all move on to screens, being targeted by a digital scam is no longer an anomaly.
No, it's the norm.
It is practically a universal human experience. If you haven't been targeted yet, statistical probability says you will be.
It's just a matter of time.
And if we know, based on the neurobiology and the psychology we've discussed today, that these digital predators rely entirely on our silence and our shame to sustain their massive industry, how can we radically change our social culture?
That's the real challenge.
How do we build a world where admitting we've been scammed becomes as normal, as socially routine, and as completely shame-free as reporting a stolen bicycle or a broken window?
It's a conversation we all need to start having out loud in the light of day.
Something to think about the next time your phone vibrates with an urgent message. Until next time.